Get your popcorn ready for the College Baseball Insider Show with Matt Grissom and Quentin Mills, giving you all the insights and analysis you need for the weekend slate that college baseball has to offer.
Oh no! Battles deep into the night has left the stadium entirely.
Now, here are your hosts, ready to dive into the top matchups.
What is up, college baseball fans? We are coming to you live for episode 6, week 11 of the show. What's up, Quentin?
What's up, man? I'm hopefully we have a better week than we did last week. I went to the beach, spent a couple days, and all my bet slips, I just put them in my account, printed them off, and just threw them in the ocean because that's about how it went. It was a nice donation on the East Coast. I'm going to turn that around, though. I'm back in Virginia. I'm wearing my trusty Gators hat, and they're gonna get back on track, and my bets are gonna get back on track. So optimistic.
Usually we start the show by recapping last week, but we're
gonna just skip it.
We got obliterated. Not that the handicap didn't feel bad. I felt like several games we were on the right side, and whether it was a blown lead late or just dumb bad luck, that's all I can describe it with. I mean, Hagen Smith pitches a great game on Sunday for the Razorbacks. They lead 8-4. They have a 89% win probability, I think, heading into the ninth inning, and they lose grand slam and then a walk-off home run. They lose 9-8. So you just can't make this stuff up. But here we are, moving on, week 11. The slate actually starts today. You've got 3 top 25 matchups going off today, starting with early. I think they moved it up maybe for weather, which we'll just dive right into with Miami and Louisville here. That is a 4 p.m. Eastern start. So coming up, Miami is currently plus 110. Louisville, the home favorite, at minus 140. And I mean, you know these teams better than me living on the East Coast, but do you have a lean either way in this one?
We talked about it earlier before we got on air. I think I'm going to sit tonight out. Miami typically doesn't play well on the road, as we can see. They're 4-11. Louisville, I'm still not 100% sold on Louisville. They are battle-tested. They played a tough midweek in Kentucky where they were able to win 7-0 in Lexington. I'm not a huge fan of Gage Zeal. He has gotten a little better over his conference starts. He struggled as a game 1 starter early. They slid him to game 2. Carson Lagone goes down with a shoulder soreness type injury for a couple weeks. Zeal slides back into the game 1, and he definitely seems a little more comfortable. I don't trust Ryan Hawks on the other side. He gives up a lot of runs, 4.37 ERA. Now, he does pitch a little better. You can obviously see a Sierra shows he should have a little lower ERA, but Miami can hit the ball. The question is, are they going to actually break out of their road slump or their road less than average performances? You know, it is kind of crunch time for these teams. They're, trying to bid for a host, and we only have a couple more weeks left. I think that the game, if you're going to take Miami, is with Carson Lagone. I think he's their best pitcher outside of Andrew Walters and maybe Torres out of the bullpen. Starting-wise, that he's going to give you the best chance against Greg Ferrone. And then I would probably jump on Carson Leggett on Sunday. Rosario, he's so hit or miss. The guy could be, Max Scherzer one night, but then he could look like, a has-been pitcher with a 8.93 ERA within the same game. It's just so hard to tell what Rosario you're going to get. Carson Leggett hasn't really let us down. He pitched really well. I believe in his only loss this year, he gave up 3 runs, and I think they lost 4-3. So it's one of those. Stay away Friday. In my opinion, Lagone Saturday, and then go to Liggett Sunday.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on Liggett. I probably lean Louisville here. I wish the line hadn't have moved. You said it opened up, Miami was plus 120?
Miami was plus 105. They're up to plus 110 as of 2 o'clock Eastern time. Louisville was minus, I believe, 120 opening line. Now they're minus 140. So a 20-point swing. I mean, obviously somebody's put some decent money on the Louisville Cardinals here.
I mean, Louisville may be one of those teams, kind of like we talked about, Florida and Arkansas. They're coming off a series where they get swept. They're back at home. They've really got to, nut up and prove something here. I would probably lean Louisville to take this series. I think they win tonight, and I think they could win on what would be Saturday, the Sunday game. But I'm with you. I think minus 140 may be a little too rich to lay on a team that we've seen, not step up in big moments. But they did beat Kentucky in the midweek, which we were both on Kentucky. That was kind of a heartbreaker. But I don't know. The more I sit here and think about it, the more I'm kind of talking myself into pulling the trigger on the Cardinals tonight.
I don't think you're wrong. It's probably going to be a stay away for me for the simple fact of if I take Louisville, I know Gage Zeal is going to outperform, and he's probably going to get Miami a win. If I try to side with the plus money, I definitely see Louisville as the favorite to win. So it's kind of just a stay away for me just with my luck lately. I'm going to try to play it smart. But I do agree. I think Louisville gets the series strictly because they're at home. They had a sweep last week. They had a really good win against a good Kentucky team. So that should give them some momentum. And then obviously Carson Lee gets automatic on Sundays. So that's one win. They only have to get one more to win the series.
Moving on to the SEC, we've got Mississippi State taking on number 24 back in the top 25, Tennessee Volunteers after, what an impressive series last weekend against Vanderbilt. They just, for whatever reason, they showed up and they got it right. Do you think Tennessee, that was a fluke, or do you think they're here to finally start making some noise this season?
I think, Ted, this is the test for them. When you look at them, they're in playoff mode, and I texted you that earlier. You asked me if they're back. They might be, but I'm not ready to say yes until after this series. I've always said Vandy's hitting is kind of their weak link. Enrique Bradfield Jr. is an incredible defender, but he really doesn't help them at the plate much. If you can't get on base, you can't steal bases, and that seems to be kind of what we're seeing is his sub 300 hurts them, especially at the beginning of the lineup. Their pitching, that extra inning game really killed them. When they had to rely on their closer to go 4 innings, you could steadily see his 93, 94 mile an hour fastball drop into the mid 80s. Maybe he's a little tired coming into this. I get he has a week off, but he's never really pitched 4 straight innings in a game. That's different for him. There's a reason he's a closer. They typically only go 1 to 2. Mississippi State, didn't they win their series last week?
They went 2-2. I'm trying to get it to load right now to look, but
I'm drawing a blank. I will say this: they're turning it around. They're turning it around. I don't think they're a layup as some teams, can be. I'll be honest. I do think Tennessee could sweep the series. I think them being in playoff mode. I looked. Andrew Lindsey, he's 0-2. The guy's going to pick up a win this year. He hasn't pitched horrible, in my opinion. Dollander seems to be kind of dialed back in. Maybe that elite start Saturday and then Beams Sunday. Beams pitched pretty well this year. Maybe them getting a sweep really fires them guys up. Zane Denton, Griffin Merritt, Blake Burke, and then there was a freshman. I can't think of him. He was a lefty. He sparked that team with the game tying home run Friday night against Vandy. The kid's an absolute stud. He's pretty much worked himself into a starting role, whether it's DH or in the field. Tennessee needs to sweep. They got to get any SEC wins that they can. And I think if they sweep this and they go 11-10, the magic number is going to be 13 or 14 to get them in. And they have a tough slate after this series. So I think this is a sweep or not die, but you gotta get 2 or 3. I think if you can get a third, you can kind of maybe afford another loss somewhere down the line. So give me Tennessee in a bold sweep here.
So Mississippi State did lose their series against Auburn at Auburn.
All right.
They picked up a midweek win against Ole Miss, and
maybe that's what I'm thinking.
As we know, 2 weekends ago they won their series with Ole Miss. So this Mississippi State team is so hit or miss right now. I think you're probably more confident in Tennessee at this point, which is really saying a lot given how down Tennessee has been this year. But just looking at their home record, Mississippi State's away record 4-6, and if you've watched the show lately, you've seen these graphics all change, and now I've added the record by the numbers and a few different key stats for the pitchers. I think the longevity of how far they go, it'll better help you handicap. If a pitcher goes 2 or 3 innings versus 5 or 6, you probably can put more stock in handicapping a pitcher who goes deeper in the game.
I think
so that's what that innings pitched per appearance is. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, because you're touching on that, Andrew Lindsay's only gone roughly 3 innings. I think he's able against a Mississippi State team, like you said, is so up and down, to really stretch that to 5 or 6.
Yeah, and that's just the average per appearance. So as they've taken on different roles, you'll see those numbers increase. Like Q had said earlier, you're going to have your starters go a lot longer. So if you've got a guy that's taken out of a reliever position and thrown in as a starter, his average is going to be lesser because let's face it, he just hadn't had to handle that workload throughout the season. But anyways, going back to Tennessee. So they're -2, 230 now on DraftKings?
Yeah, they open up at -205, and now they're -230. I mean, how do you not lay it? I hate to say it, but it's a fade against Mississippi State. I mean, on paper, Tennessee is so much better. They have to. They're playoff mode. I mean, they have to win. They don't have the opportunity to lose, and that's why I think, even though it's juice, it's a heavy lay. I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I'm going to ultimately stay away from it. If there was something else to parlay it with, maybe. But I don't know if Tennessee should be -230 to really any SEC opponent right now.
Probably not.
But another team that I probably shouldn't lay it with, and I did. Let's talk about the Texas A&M Aggies traveling to Fayetteville to take on the number 7 Arkansas Razorbacks, who just dagger through my heart last weekend. I don't know what that was. And then, I told you the midweek against Missouri State was a horrible spot for them. I hope everybody followed that bet because that one did cash at, I think, a +230 price. But here in Arkansas, we could actually lay a run line. So I took Missouri State +3.5 run line, -125. That was a full unit play, which also helped my numbers. But this Arkansas team, they are at a point where they're crying for help. The injury bug has bit them so hard. Tavian Josenberger goes down trying to evade the tag at first. Just a horrible hamstring injury. He's probably out for a few more weeks. Of course, we lost Wagner, who that was a big loss because that was our best home run hitter. But you're going to have guys step up. And, there's a guy named, I think, Jason Jones, who, if he can figure out how to get in the lineup, he's probably our hardest hitter. And he's a home run threat. But again, he's got to be able to get in the game. Where that's going to be, I'm not real sure. Van Horn played musical chairs with the positions against Missouri State. I think you had Slavens, who's our first baseman. He was out in left field. You moved around guys. You played a lot of guys that hadn't played very much this year. But this is where you've got to step up. And in true Dave Van Horn fashion, I feel like he's going to be able to get this right and win this series. And I think that starts tonight with Hunter Hollan going. I don't think Hunter Hollan has another poor performance. I think he steps up. And then there's a little guy named Brady Tigert who is back. Van Horn even teased that, anybody can be a starter. And he said Hagen Smith will pitch, Brady Tigert will pitch. And who knows? You could see both of them or either of them start. So I don't know what that's all about, but I'm going to be hammering the Hogs all weekend long. I don't think they come back and do what they did to me last week. Talk me off the ledge, though.
I'm jumping with you, man. I think what's helping me is, again, I said it last week. I think in college baseball more so than the MLB, you really have to look at where series are played. So they get swept, but it was on the road. It's in in an environment that got louder and louder as we got through the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday matchups. You get to come back home. You just lost to Missouri State, so you're on a 4-game slate. The number 7 team in the country doesn't lose 5 in a row. Texas A&M is playing better baseball. Nate Detmer is their best option to win, but I'm bad timing for A&M. You're catching a 4-game losing streak with the number 7 team in the country at their home field. Again, you mentioned the injuries. You said they're crying for help. They got their help. His name's Brady Tigert. That is the guy. That is the guy everybody's been waiting for. When he steps on the mound, he's deadly. He's, an assassin. He wins games for them, whether it's in a relief or a closing aspect. I don't think anybody's a starter. I will say that. I get what Van Horn's kind of doing. He's kind of playing coy, I think, a little bit as he has the past couple weeks. I think the team can overcome the injuries of Wegner, in the Jossenberger guy. Again, you touched on it. Hunter Holland, I don't think loses 2 starts in a row. He looked rough against Georgia. Even though they had a 2-0 lead early, there was a couple innings, second or third, or maybe second and fourth inning. Bases were loaded with 2 outs, and he kind of struggled to get out of those innings with any efficiency. He was able to get out, and then it got too much for him, and they started giving up runs, and obviously it leads to a game 1 loss, and then domino effects into a sweep. I don't see that. Good teams bounce back, and I have to take Arkansas at home with arguably their best pitcher outside of Tigert. And I think right now it's Hunter Holland. I've backed pitchers, Paul Skeens. I backed Brandon Sproat. I don't expect them to go undefeated. It's very, very hard to do that. They get their losses out of the way, and they have great starts, in the next start. So I'm going to lean on that. It's a tried and true for me. It's worked this season. I'm up units overall. I'm going to stick with my rhythm.
Yep. Well, talking about Paul Skeens, let's move on to Friday's slate. You've got Alabama traveling to Baton Rouge to take on number 1 LSU and Paul Skeens. However, if you saw the graphic I posted last week, Luke Holman of Alabama, he's also up there in the top 5 in pitchers in the SEC by ERA. I think this could be an actual low-scoring game, and given all of LSU's firepower, I think Luke Holman could actually play pretty well. But do you give Alabama any chance at winning a game versus LSU?
At least not on Friday. I think it's actually, if I was Bama, I probably would have changed my pitching rotation. I probably would have put my number 2 or my number 1 guy in game 2 and pitched against Ty Floyd. I just think you're setting yourself up. I know you're trying to even the matchup. It's kind of a heavyweight fight on Fridays, but I think you got to play chess if you're an Alabama team going into LSU in a situation like this. Paul Skeens is so electric. I just don't see how they lose Friday night. LSU struggled. I mean, they lost to Nicholls State or Nichols, whatever they are, Wednesday. They're not going to be happy about that. They're going to their guy. They're pretty electric offensively. They're pretty pumped when he pitches. I think this is a bad decision to pitch Holman for Bama on game 1. Like I said, I think you move him to game 2 and play chess with LSU's weaker guys. But they are 30-12. They're a good team. I don't think it's going to be an absolute rout. I think Bama can hang. I just don't think they win this series. I do think they get a game, though. I don't necessarily think this is a sweep.
Yeah, I think LSU they just won their first SEC series in a sweep versus Ole Miss. That's not really common for them. I think that's been the only team that they've swept. So I do think Alabama gets one, but I'm with you. I would throw Luke Holman, play some chess and pick your position of when you're going to try to get that win, because I don't think it's going to come versus Paul Skeens. I would not be surprised if tomorrow, tonight, whenever the line's open, you see LSU as high as like minus 190. And even though they probably shouldn't be that price, I think carrying the number 1 beside their name is going to help boost that. But if Hunter Holland's only minus 175 versus Texas A&M, I feel like LSU, given their track record, it's probably going to be in the 200s. But I would say minus 1 is where it should be. if it's anything more than that, I may have to just take a swing with Alabama.
May the best man win on that one. I mean, I don't know. It's like I said,
At
if they're
that
going to throw
point-
Luke Coleman.
I mean, at that point, you're playing the number. If you're going to get Luke Coleman plus 200 or anywhere north of that, I feel like you've got to throw at least a quarter unit on it just to see what happens.
No, I mean, I
Crazy
like the strategy. I like the strategy. I mean, I like the strategy of pitching him game 2 better, but again, I don't necessarily see that happening. So without that, I think your strategy plays very well. It's just, man, it's so hard to even throw a quarter against Paul Skeens. It's just so hard.
Well, and I guess
he has lost. He has lost. So,
and part of that also comes with when they played Arkansas, Hunter Holland and Paul Skeens. I mean, that was a pitcher's duel.
absolutely.
And so it got to the bullpen, and then Arkansas won. So Paul Skeens didn't get the loss in his column, but if Alabama could just hang with them, I think Luke Holman versus Paul Skeens, that's going to be a low-scoring game through 5 or 6 innings. I mean, you see both of them go around 5 on average. So Skeens going 6. I don't know. Crazier things have happened.
Who has the better bullpen? And I'll be honest, I know LSU's, but I can't sit there and tell you I know much about Bama's bullpen. LSU's bullpen we've seen, they're not as good as advertised.
Yeah, I don't really think any SEC team is particularly great in the bullpen. I think, a couple teams have 1 or 2 guys, but it all depends on how they're matching up. If LSU has like a 4-1 lead, they're probably not going to throw their best guy out of the bullpen. But if it's 2-1, they may. So it all kind of changes through the handicap, which is why I wish you could live bet college baseball, because what a wild ride that would be. But
don't ask for something crazy. Just get us over-unders, please. I mean, we can't even get an over-under, and you're talking live betting.
Or series prices.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we're not asking for much. Not asking for much.
Moving on, you've got the number 15 ranked Kentucky Wildcats going to Nashville to take on the number 5 ranked Vanderbilt Commodores, who just were abysmal last weekend, getting swept by Tennessee like we touched on earlier. I think they may have their pitching rotation finally figured out, but I don't know if I could back Vanderbilt right now. They've had the issues with offense. Kentucky's playing – they're playing well. They're probably playing better than what they are, but look at their road schedule at 10 or road record at 10-6. And then RPI versus the top 1 through 25, they're 7-4. That's pretty good. And if you could get a price upwards of like plus 175, 180, something like that on this Kentucky team, I feel like you've got to take it versus Vanderbilt.
This is a tough one. Carter Holton should have had a win against Vanderbilt or Tennessee last week. I think he was robbed. He had a good performance. He had him down 3-1. I mean, he had a hell of a start, and for him not to get that is a travesty. We said he was going to bounce back after that 2/3 2 weeks ago, and he did. He pitched phenomenal. Do we have the same situation happen again? Does the offense show up and bat anemically again and screw Carter Holton out of another win? I just don't know. Kentucky, I mean, they just took a bad loss at home against a rival, probably your biggest rival in Louisville. You got shut out. I texted you. I said they couldn't get the bats off the shoulders. They had opportunities to score. They didn't. They couldn't take advantage of free bases. Now they have to go on the road. Give me Vanderbilt game 1, and then I'm not touching the series after that.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm a used car salesman.
Right. So I feel like last weekend, and I know me and Johnny were texting about this, I feel like last weekend college baseball got flipped on its axis. Everything that was supposed to happen did not happen. Texas A&M, they beat Kentucky in that series 2-1. I don't think Texas A&M is very good. And I think Kentucky, for whatever reason, they're probably better than what I'm giving them credit for. They're not as great as maybe their record, but they're better than Texas A&M, just like Arkansas is better than Georgia. And I'll fight anybody who says that betting Arkansas last weekend against Georgia was a bad call because you're betting the number. I mean, the Orioles may sweep the Yankees, but at the end of the year, who's a better team? And so you can't look back and say, yeah, I wish I wouldn't have bet the better team. Can't do it.
Especially the sweep.
Yeah. I mean, again, so Texas A&M is not very good. I think Kentucky's better than that. And just because they lost that series last week, it's kind of hindering me away from betting them. And then the midweek, what was the motivation level? Who knows?
Well, I think for Kentucky, it's huge because it was their biggest rivalry. I mean, that's just my thought.
Like, could have been said for Louisville. I mean, but
Louisville showed out.
Home host Miami, yeah.
Here's the thing, and I said it, and not to interrupt, but I think it goes right into what you're saying. I've said it on 2 or 3 shows now. We're on show 6. I think I've said it 3 or 4 times. Kentucky is good. They're playing above themselves. I said it about South Carolina. They're not playing above themselves. They are legit. Kentucky is not legit. They're good. There's a difference in being legit or elite and good. Kentucky's good. They've gotten better since last year. Like I said, they were the first team to beat Tennessee in a series last year. They did that, right? That's an accomplishment. Now they're a 30-win team. To me, that's a successful season. You've went from here to here. South Carolina's up here. You're not. You're going on the road after losing a huge rivalry game. You lost your last series. Now you have to go on the road against a Vanderbilt team that has at least their 3 starters, incredible starters. I think Cunningham's a number 1 on most teams. Maybe not in the SEC. He's an ACC number 1. Devin Futrell. He could be a 2 on a lot of teams. He's a 3. I'm not saying they're incredible. I'm not saying they're better than, maybe Arkansas or whatever. But you get what I'm trying to say. They're solid pitchers. Carter Holton's the number 1 on any team in the country, outside of maybe the couple teams that have like a Paul Skeens and some other guys. To have to go on the road after a series loss last week, a brutal rivalry loss, it's tough, man. It's to me, Vanderbilt needs this win more than Kentucky. Kentucky's gonna be in the tournament. They're good enough. Vanderbilt's playing for a host, and I to be honest, I don't think Kentucky necessarily is. I think Kentucky's going to be a 2 seed. I think it's going to be a gift if they end up being one of the top 16s. Vanderbilt's playing for a potential 8 seed, so I think there's more on the line, especially being swept by your crosstown rival. That's just the way I go. At least game one. At least game one.
I agree to a certain extent. I also just don't think Vanderbilt's that good this year. I mean,
I said it. Yeah. Offensively, they suck. Yeah, they suck.
And facing a pitching staff by Kentucky that is wildly mediocre, but they're consistent. They're all in mid-4s, and same with their Sierra. I don't know. I think it's going to be a tough test for Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt's not sweeping, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if Kentucky doesn't at least win one. And to be honest, these 3 pitchers, I know they've started pretty much all season long for them. I haven't seen anything just super impressive by any of them. Carter Holton is probably the best pitcher. I don't know. I like Devin Futrell. But Vanderbilt may have the pitching advantage, but I think Kentucky is probably better offensively.
Without a doubt.
You talk about the bullpens, like we talked about earlier, I think
Vandy has the bullpen edge as well.
I think if you get the right number on Kentucky, I feel like it's worth the play.
All right, so before we'll end on this, and we'll move on to the next slide. What would you price maybe game 1? Because obviously it's your best matchup. It's the most confident that I'm in Vanderbilt. It would only be a game 1 touch for me because I think you're right. I think Kentucky could win 2 and 3, no problem. I wouldn't be surprised if they win 1, but I just lean Vandy. Vandy, I would imagine, is going to be like 135. Minus? Like, not heavy. I don't think they're going to be at minus 190.
I don't know.
You think it's
I would
closer?
say no. I would say Vanderbilt's probably going to be a heavier favorite.
Really?
Yeah. I
All right.
really think Vanderbilt's probably going to be like minus 155, 165. So that would put Kentucky at what, like plus 130, 135?
Yeah. Yeah, around there.
I
Man,
don't know.
now you might be selling me here at something.
These books made, and they love that number 5. Oh, number 5.
I know.
Kentucky just got shut out 0-7. I don't know.
All right, let's move on because
well, that's what I was going to say. You've got that F on your hat.
Let's go.
Which you said was, what are you superstitious about it? What did you tell me about the hat?
Episode
the
4.
Last time you wore it.
Episode 3, week 8. We went into Knoxville and beat the shit out of the Tennessee Vols. Let's go. Bounce back time for the Florida Gators.
All right. It's your team. You talk about them.
Yeah, I'll start it off. I thought Brandon Sproat pitched pretty damn well last week. The game was 3-3 against a stud South Carolina team. I mean, that was a duel. To have Sanders and Sproat 3-3 in the 6th, Sproat gives up a questionable double. It probably was a double. I think it was worth a review. They didn't review it. I think something that close, maybe you go to the cameras for. It is what it is. And then the bullpen fell apart. That is what killed. I didn't see Florida getting swept. I thought the bullpen falling apart and giving 5 walks is the killer, in my opinion. I think that inning really set the tone for how the series was. Even I listened to 11.7. Dimitri even said the same thing. He's a former pitcher, and he kind of stated too, like, the strike zone got very, very small out of nowhere in that inning, and that guy should have rung up a couple batters, and he didn't. He sent him to first base. Obviously, I have a little bias, but when a third-party analyst is saying the same thing, there's got to be some validity to it, especially coming from a guy that did pitch Division I baseball. The strike zone changed. I'm not defending that by any. I'm not saying that's the only reason they lost. The bats weren't there. I mean, they had 2 freshmen bat 400, and everybody else batted like 260. BT Ryapel is slumping right now. He finally got a solid hit in the midweek. He got a couple RBIs. He's starting to smile again. Maybe that translates. All it takes is one hit to get you back in a groove. And I think seeing that smile from him out of the frustration in the South Carolina series gets him going. I think Kaggs gets going. He had a pretty quiet weekend. I think Wyatt Langford finally gets something going. He's kind of been struggling since he had that groinal injury a couple weeks ago. I think Hurston Waldrop pitched really well. He gave up 2 bad pitches, and unfortunately, it cost him 5 runs, a 2-run shot and a 3-run shot. But he did it against such solid team. Missouri, to me, they can't lick the jockstrap sweat out of South Carolina. I think Florida is going to find a way to potentially sweep this team, and I think Missouri is getting better. I mean, they were predicted to be one of the worst teams in the SEC. I think they had an early charge, but they have beaten a team like Vanderbilt. I believe, didn't they beat LSU? If I'm not mistaken. No, they didn't beat LSU. They beat somebody in the Shriners Classic.
LSU.
Yeah, you're right.
They beat TCU.
TCU, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Texas
and TCU. So they play good teams, but I just think Florida is in a rebound spot. I think they maybe have a sigh of relief. They only dropped from a 3 to a 4. Give me the first 2 games with Sproat and Waldrop to get wins there, and then you could flip a coin on Kaggs.
So I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me is that big 1-11 under Missouri versus RPI ranked top 25. I just think they're going to be outmatched completely. Now, can crazy things happen? Yes.
Yeah, it was called last weekend.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Yes, they can happen. It happened last weekend. I doubt it happens 2 weekends in a row. Give me Florida in all the money line parlays, and I'm going to be throwing in Wake Forest. That's kind of like our baby right now. I feel like we're just, taking really good care of it. We've got several futures tickets on them, or I know I do. They're playing Wofford this weekend. They're probably going to be
minus
850.
Yeah.
Probably too much to really even bet or parlay, but
Bradley
I
Porth,
feel
if you're listening, don't lay the big line. It costs you in Tennessee. Don't do it.
but yeah, I mean, like maybe LSU, you parlay LSU, Tennessee, Florida. I feel like you're probably going to make money if you do it all 3 games over the weekend. But the Florida Gators, man, I just really thought that they were going to take 1 against South Carolina. I'm sorry it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But you move on. I mean, South Carolina is legit. I'm so glad I have a ticket on them. Your other team, I guess, just because of your location, number 13 Virginia plays host to number 20 Duke. This Duke team, it's like Jekyll and Hyde. I can't ever tell if they're going to be really good or really bad from day in and day out. They come in off a 5-0 week where they swept Louisville. No one saw that coming. They beat Campbell in the midweek. Let's talk about Duke and Virginia. I mean, Virginia didn't look impressive last weekend. Duke's hot. Is now the right time to start backing the Blue Devils if you can get a big plus money price?
I don't know. And the reason
Got speechless, folks.
It does because I thought, and you said Virginia didn't play good last week. They haven't played good the last 2 weeks. Remember, they lost 2 or 3 at home to Pitt. But then we saw Pitt turn around and beat Sullivan and Wake Forest 3-0. Now, they gave up 40 more runs in 2 games and only showed up for 5. But it's to be expected, right? And then UVA goes to Notre Dame, which I told you to bet Virginia. I thought it was a series win against an average Notre Dame team. They don't. They lose. They lost all 3.
Yeah, they got swept.
On the road. They struggled Tuesday night. Now they won, but they had to come back. So then they parlay that into another. I think they ended up, when I saw the score last night, it was 9-4. I think they won 13-4. They're maybe finding their way again. The problem is, I just don't know where UVA gets the 2 wins. I know Duke is kind of surging right now, but again, and I've said it earlier this show, I think Duke's coming into a Virginia team that is a little more desperate than Duke right now. I mean, UVA was a top 8 team heading into last week and the week before. They're now out of that. They're playing for a host spot. Duke is playing for a spot in the projected 64 as a 2 seed, in my opinion. They're not going to be a host. We know that. Virginia's playing for that host. They've had 2 midweek games to kind of get the focus going. They get to be at home. This is the start. This week was the start of 11-game homestand for them. So they're going to feel good. They've got a little rain Friday, good weather Saturday, maybe some rain Sunday. I would have to. I don't see lines because I'm in the state of Virginia. You would have to kind of relay what the lines are, but I do think Virginia gets 2 or 3. I really do. I think it's bad timing for Duke.
They almost have to at this point.
Yeah,
like you touched on, they just fell out of that top 8,
and they're a good team. Like, people don't forget, they're a good team.
Yeah. And I think these 2 teams, I mean, looking at their pitching matchup, they're pretty comparable.
Yeah.
I think the biggest difference is Jake Geloff with Virginia. I mean, you take his numbers off there, and they probably are the same team. I agree. I think they do bounce back. They take 2 of 3. I guess the only thing that worries me is this surge by Duke, and maybe they're peaking too early. But, I mean, 8-4 on the road, 9-4 versus top 25 RPI. I mean, yeah, Virginia's they're really good too, but I don't know. I need to see that number, and we'll be posting our bets, like we always do daily. But
the number on your sheet, I think, tells us a lot too. What's Virginia's RPI rank 1 through 25?
6.
I'm sorry, their record. It's 5-1.
Oh yeah.
they play up to competition. They play ready when they play top 25 teams. They have one of the best coaches in college baseball to get them prepared. They played 2 non-25 teams. That's who they lost to. They got 2 losses at home. They're probably the best home team in the country. I think we have to lean on that. I really do.
Yep.
But they don't sweep. Duke gets one. I just can't tell you where because, like you said, they're 2 identical teams.
That's the tough part is trying to handicap which one. So I guess, going back to how we bet these, if you're pretty solid in thinking that a team will win the series, like I was against Georgia, you bet that accordingly. I mean, if they lose game 1, nothing changed. I mean, you still think that they're going to, unless somebody gets hurt, you still think that they're going to win the series. So what does that mean? Bet game 2 and game 3.
Yeah.
Now,
I think you bet game 1.
So where it was different for me with Arkansas, and I'm sorry, I feel like this is an Arkansas Razorback podcast, and it's not, but I got called out on it on Twitter, is why did you go back with 2 units on the second day? And I said, look, after they lost game 1, I still believed that Arkansas was going to win that series. And so I went back with the same confidence I did in game 1 because I still had the same damn confidence that I had all along that they were going to win that series. Now, the only reason I went back on and bet the last day, because at that point I was 0-2, Hogs didn't win the series. I got the handicap wrong. The only reason I bet Arkansas is because they were starting Hagen Smith, who had not started in like 5 weeks. So I know I don't have to justify the bet, but that's why the bet was made. I'm not an idiot with this. I do what I do because I'm confident in what has gotten me to this point, and I feel like I've lived and learned betting college baseball. It's not always easy, but like I've talked about, and like Ben Upton always says, the great teams that go on to win it all, they go hot, cold, hot. And as of right now, Arkansas fits that mold to a T. They started, I think,
there's my Gator
15-game win streak. Now they're on a cold streak. I don't know. The Hogs could get cooking if they could get healthy.
I'll just put it
on getting healthy.
Yeah, I'll just put it blankly to kind of bow up, wrap it up and bow what you said. And this isn't a shot at anybody because do I think you are the best college baseball handicapper in the country? Probably not. There's probably somebody that just doesn't have something that probably kills it. And that's awesome. We go on the numbers. I backed Hurston Waldrop. I thought they were going to get either game 1 or game 2 against South Carolina. One of them. I thought the numbers were there. I bet them. I lose them. It happens. But I took that same strategy against a Tennessee team when Florida was plus money. I said they're going to win game 1 on the road. They win. Okay, well, I think they're going to win that series. I told you they were going to win that series. I then bet them game 2 because that's what you do. You put the numbers on the table. You figure it out. If it lines up, you bet them. If you think they're going to win the series and they won as a plus dog, well, you think they're going to win again. You got to win 2 games in a series to win it. So if I think they're going to win the series, why would I bet game 1 they win and then I just back off? You know what I mean? So the thought process is there. If you feel, and I say you as in anybody to the public, if you feel like you have better info, please come on the show. You're only making us better. We would love to learn. I don't know everything. You don't know everything. If you have better info, please bring it on because it makes all of us better. We're here. We're free. We don't charge for picks. But when the numbers are there, just because you lose 3 in a row doesn't mean you weren't on the right side. I mean, there is probably not a single person outside of just being a biased Georgia fan that could have numbers back up the fact of UVA or UGA was going to sweep Arkansas. Nobody in the country, I'm confidently saying that, thought that. It happens. Yeah. So we move on. We're going to probably win this weekend. It just is what it is. You can lose a bet and be on the right side. It happens all the time.
Yep. Well, looking back, I wish I wouldn't have. When earlier I said an 89% win percentage. Their win probability At one point in the ninth, they had a 98.7% win percentage and lost.
Yeah,
And
but it
it's
happens in
baseball.
any sport. We watched a guy in the March Madness. I believe it was TCU, was like -4.5. They're covering. This kid throws up a 3/4 court shot and hits it to take away the cover. That's a 99.9 with like 1 second left. You're telling me I wasn't on the right side and he just hits a freaking full quarter? Come on, man. Like, it happens. But we move on. It is what it is. They want to call us out. They don't post plays. It is what it is.
Well, is there anything else that you like? And apologies, I ran out of time to do a preview card for number 17, Arizona State. They're going to Eugene to take on the 23 ranked Ducks. Pac-12 has not really been nice to me this year, and I don't really have a gauge here either way. I thought that Arizona State would lose one of two in their Cal State Fullerton midweek. Of course, I bet the day that they lost and Fullerton. I bet the day that Fullerton lost the game and then they turn around and beat Arizona State in the second game. But
I'll be honest, I didn't see them beating Oregon State in the series either.
I mean, Oregon, you've got Jay Stoffel, who's been pretty solid. Arizona State, their pitching is not great. I mean, you can look back on last week's previews to kind of get what their rotation looks like. But I feel like Oregon takes the series. I'll probably bet it if it's evenly priced, but I feel like Oregon's probably going to be like -140, 150, and that's just too much juice to lay in a Pac-12 game.
I think they're a good parlay team, like with Jay Stoffel, like you just said. I think I was surprised that Oregon State dropped that series against Arizona State. Obviously, they had the slugfest on Sunday that could have went either way. Obviously, it goes Arizona State's way. They split with Cal State Fullerton. Cal State Fullerton's probably one of the better mid-major teams in the country when it comes to playing, ranked or division, Power 5 conference teams or whatever you want to call them. I like Oregon in this spot because they're playing at home. I think Arizona State is not worthy of being ranked, in my opinion. I think there maybe is some better teams out there. I think they lose 2 of 3. I think Stoffel gets one of them, and then they're going to pick up, another win at some point. I'm not saying the Ducks are good, but I like them playing at home against an overrated Arizona State team. So I think they're a good parlay team. If Campbell would have won last night, that would have been 2 straight nights where Oregon covered in a parlay for me. So I'm probably going to go back to the well, at least with Stoffel, and go from there.
Speaking of Campbell, do you know who they play this weekend?
I did not see who they played. I'll be honest, I didn't look.
Because I don't see them anywhere on the Friday slate.
Can we talk about them real quick just to kind of end the show?
Let's talk about the Camels.
I think they're slightly overrated. I know Johnny V's big on them. They have one good pitcher. When I look at the 2 power mid-major teams right now, it's Campbell and it's Coastal. And I'm taking Coastal all day long against Campbell. I mean, when I just look at the teams Coastal plays and the dominance that they've showed as of recent, and then I look at Campbell, I know it was early in the season, but Coastal's beaten Wake Forest. They got beat by Clemson, but they've beat UNC. They've beat some good quality, Power 5 teams. And then when I look at Campbell, now Duke's obviously a good team, but they kind of struggled against them. They couldn't get the bats going. And, don't get me wrong, Duke's decent right now, but I wouldn't say their pitching's elite. Coastal actually scores.
To play devil's advocate to that, is that recency bias because you just lost money backing them?
I think it is.
They're 0-2. They're 0-2 in the midweek, so I get it. I mean,
I think it is, but it isn't. When I start to look at Omaha, when you look at the performances of mid-major teams, and you can even use Coastal when they won their title in 2016, you have to hit. Now, granted, they have a lot more power than Campbell this year, I would say. Campbell might have the edge pitching, but Carney, Horn, Morrison, they've really stepped up for Coastal as of late. They're playing hot right now. If I'm taking a team to Omaha, I need the team that can hit and score those late 7th, 8th, 9th inning runs, and I give that edge to Coastal. The ballpark doesn't play small out in Omaha, but they're a team that can hit a gap double. They can hit that line drive single to get that run in. As good as Campbell's pitching are, I don't think the hitting's there. I just don't think they have the clutchness come super regional and Omaha status where I think Coastal does.
Well,
that's just I see it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, to help prove your point, their record versus RPI top 25 teams, Campbell's is 3-4, so they've got a losing record. They're 0-0 versus the top 50 or 26 through 50. Coastal Carolina is also 3-4 versus top 25, but they're 3-1 against 26 through 50. And arguably 1 through 50 is really the better spectrum to look at because those are all going to be regional teams. So you may have some merit there. I mean, I think right now, if you took Campbell and Coastal Carolina and put them in Omaha and made them play a neutral site series, I would probably have to back Coastal Carolina to win it.
Coastal beat them.
That should really be your marker.
Yeah, I agree. I just kind of wanted to throw that out just because I know a lot of they're obviously one of the bigger mid-major teams to cover, and that's just kind of what I have. Now, who does Coastal play? I haven't looked them up either.
I have not. Oh, Louisiana. That's right.
That's another tough series, man. Louisiana's good.
Yeah.
I mean, they beat LSU.
They're at home.
That's Louisiana a tough series. That's a tough series. I could see Coastal dropping one. I really could. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I think we owe those two teams, 30 seconds. We covered it. That's all I have. I said what I said about Campbell. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're College World Series. I think Coastal can be. We'll see.
There you go. Well, thank you for joining us. If you watched it live, if not, check out the podcast, or you can check out all of our stats and info on the Week 11 matchups by visiting collegebaseballinsiders.com. I'm Matt Grissom at Grissom Tweets. That's Q at Q Millie. And I appreciate you tuning in. Q, got anything else?
I don't.
Go Hogs, go Gators.
Let's go Gators. Good vibes
tonight. There you go.
Good. Yep.
All right. Cheers, y'all. Enjoy the weekend.